Hello, I'm Karan.
And I'm Ofosu.
And welcome back to the podcast. It's not the greatest, not the worst, but the okay podcast.
Okay podcast. Alright, so today we're joined by a special guest by the name of Yasmeen. She's doing her master's in cancer research at, honestly, I think one of the best schools in Canada or something like that. The University of Ottawa. We have her on call right now because of social distancing. So say hi to everyone, Yasmeen.
Hi everyone.
Thank you for joining us today to talk about some of your research that you've been working on.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Yasmeen, like I said before, is doing her research with viruses and how they can help in cancer therapy.
Viruses? I thought those were bad for you.
I don't know, man.
Aren't they responsible for causing infections and making us sick? We've been in lockdown for 7 months due to a virus.
Alright, okay. So you make a good point. Viruses, they kind of do this thing where they inject their DNA and into the cell, and then the cell's organelles, they kind of replicate, and then they make more viruses. And then they go on to do the same thing. The symptoms that you feel, the runny nose, the coughing, the sneezing, the fever, it's all actually symptoms caused because your immune system is trying to fight back, right?
Exactly. But in my lab, we actually use oncolytic viruses, which are viruses that are going to go and target specific cancer cells. So basically, they can be naturally occurring or genetically modified. And they've been actually known to be used alongside many cancer immunotherapies. So they infect cancer cells, and just as a regular virus actually would, and it begins to use the cancer cell's machinery to replicate until the cell lyses, which basically just means to explode, and they go and move on to go and attack other specific cancer cells.
Ooh, so they only infect and kill cancer cells? But how do they know the difference between a healthy cell and a cancer cell?
Well, cancer cells actually have abnormal cell division and cell cycles, and they've been known to have a different microenvironment than regular healthy cells. And so the oncolytic virus is actually going to be then able to specifically target and destroy cancer cells via oncolysis.
Ah, that makes sense. So is it completely safe to use since you actually won't be getting infected?
The general thing that we've actually been encountering is the overstimulation of the immune system. And this is going to cause sometimes flu-like symptoms such as fever, nausea, and fatigue.
So I guess you guys are still working on it and improving it. So, that's a good step forward. It's a good step forward.
I agree. And so we have our first question from one of our viewers. I think her name is Ranya. She asks, how did you guys come up with the idea to use viruses in the first place?
That's a good question. The idea first started in the 1960s, and they named it virotherapy. This is when a virus is used to treat conditions, and it was heavily researched. But unfortunately, back then, there was not as much technology as we have right now, so they had to end the treatment due to ineffective treatment as well as high mortality rates. However, since then, the idea was revisited back in the 1990s, and they decided to look into virotherapy using the virus that causes cold sores.
The virus that causes cold sores. Man, herpes virus. Herpes virus. I know I learned that somewhere. I think in high school or something.
Exactly. So the herpes virus was first used in clinical trials in 1996 in Europe, and eventually a modified version became the first known oncolytic viral treatment for melanoma, commonly known as skin cancer, since 2015.
Wait, I thought the first oncolytic virus was found in China.
The first treatment was approved in China back in 2005. It's called the Ameeriar virus, and it was used to treat nasopharyngeal carcinoma. This is just essentially cancer of the nasopharynx, which is right behind your nose and right above your throat. The Ameeriar virus was not used alone, but it was actually used with regular chemotherapy.
Ah, that's facts. Thank you for clearing it up for me. So the herpes virus still stands as the first virus to be used for melanoma, right?
Exactly, and it's called TVEC. You get it now.
And look at that. We have another question in the chat from a viewer. Okay, so Milani, I believe that's how I say her name, Milani asks, so how exactly do they use it? It being the oncolytic viruses. What does the therapy look like?
Another great question. Basically, they inject the virus straight into the tumor, and since it's in the skin, it's superficial. This helps the virus quickly enter the cancer cell instead of wandering around the body, which actually may cause and infect healthy cancer cells by mistake.
Sounds pretty good. Not bad. Sounds pretty efficient.
So I guess the last question has to be, what's next?
Currently, we are trying to find a way to use the oncolytic virus to go and attack brain tumors. The only tricky part is actually getting to the brain, and we're also working on making it safe and efficient.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for taking your time today to come in and telling us a bit about your research.
Thank you, Yasmeen.
Thanks so much, guys.
So tune into our next podcast tomorrow when we interview the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to hear his thoughts on the COVID-19 outbreak.
Okay.
All right.